you doing? I'm Ken Bykoff, and welcome to O'Neill Speaks, the official podcast of the Paul H. O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University. The O'Neill School has a well-earned reputation of producing graduates who make a difference by leading for the greater good. That's not just a tagline. Our grads are the reason we're the top-ranked public school for public affairs in the nation. Our reputation is built on the work of those who go out into the real world and make an impact by making that world a better place. One such recent graduate is today's guest, Rishard Allen. Rishard graduated from the O'Neill School in 2017 with his bachelor's in arts management, and he's quickly made his presence felt. Rishard is an emerging philanthropic professional and creative consultant and curator whose leadership practice is deeply concerned with promoting, protecting, and preserving culture, particularly culture at risk of erasure, censure, and appropriation. In pursuit of this mission, he's dedicated his professional career to fostering a thriving and inclusive arts, culture, and entertainment sector and championing initiatives that advance racial equity. Rishard currently serves as the Grants and Community Manager at the Pop Culture Collaborative, where he spearheads an innovative grant-making strategy that harnesses the influential power of pop culture to reshape narratives about marginalized communities, working toward a more just and pluralist future. He's also the inaugural recipient of the O'Neill Early Impact Award, which was conceived to recognize young O'Neill alumni who embody the mission, vision, and values of the O'Neill School and are making a distinctive early impact in their career. First off, congratulations, Rishard, on the award, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell me how you made your path to the O'Neill School. What got you here? Basically, tell me your life story. Where did you start, and how did you get here?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you again for having me on, and I'm so grateful to be receiving the inaugural award. I don't take that honor lightly. I have been in the arts, participating in the arts, basically all of my life. I often refer to myself as a generalist, which basically means I've dibbled and dabbled in a little bit of everything from the choral arts to the visual to photography and theater and everything in between. But I knew pretty early on that I didn't want to make a career out of being an artist. One, just because I didn't think I was talented enough, but I also really like stability.
Okay, yeah.
Artistic careers tend to be, you kind of have to piece together
Sure.
income and such. And so I was like, that's not really a good fit for me. And so when I originally enrolled in college, I enrolled at Butler University, actually my freshman year, and I was studying psychology and criminology with the expectation that I would be a forensic psychologist when I graduated. And I was in one of my criminology classes one day and very quickly realized that this wouldn't be the right career path for me. The criminal justice system is certainly a system that's in need of a lot of reform, but when I thought about the battle that I wanted to take on as a part of my career, I just didn't feel like that was a really good fit. And so I took a major aptitude test, which seems so corny, but I went on there, I plugged in all of my interests, responded to all of the prompts, and it pushed out arts management as a potential field of study, which I had no idea existed. And so I was already planning to transfer to IU, and I knew that I wanted to change my major, and I saw that there was an arts management program offered at what was then SPIA, now the O'Neill School, and I was like, well, this seems like a perfect fit. I get to support the arts and culture sector. I get to remain really close to this work, and I get to have more of a macro level view of what's going on. But I don't have to be a practicing artist, but right. I can support those people who are and make sure that they're resourced to the extent that they need to be able to have thriving careers. And so once I got here, I very, very quickly realized that this was the right path for me. And it just took off from there. I mean, I just dove right in and really applied myself, and it was a really positive experience.
Well, you talk about it being corny to take a major thing, but it actually serves a good lesson
Yes.
It's a challenge to try to ask a 17, 18-year-old, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And that ability to go ahead and change and recognize, hey, you know what, this isn't what I want to do. This is what I like, and so what can I do to help make that a career? That's actually very valuable. I'm glad that you took that lesson of being able to take that idea and say, hey, I need to change what I'm doing and follow a passion as opposed to trying to stick with something because I already said that I did.
Yeah. Well, and another layer to that is the other pressure was also usually when you're going into your undergraduate studies, it's either like STEM, law, or business.
Right.
And so I was also dealing with the external pressure of like, you're studying arts or arts management and nonprofit. There's so much volatility and not a lot of job security, but I just felt a really, really strong conviction that this is the work that I was supposed to be doing. And so I remember very vividly a conversation I had with my mother where naturally, as any parent would, when you're pursuing a career that isn't maybe as secure, she expressed her concerns. And I told her, I was like, I just want you to trust that I will make this work for myself. And we never talked about it again. She trusted me, and now we're here today. And I think being here in this moment, receiving this award, having this conversation is just really affirming for me because there was a lot of anxiety early on around like, can I actually make this work and make a really thriving career out of it? And so far, so good.
What stands out from your time in Bloomington, both inside and outside the classroom, that that you just remember, and what lessons do you feel that you learn? And I'm not even talking about textbook classroom lessons, but just life lessons that make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of things. I think the first is that I really tried to make my undergraduate experience highly curated to me and my interests. And so there was the arts management program itself, but then I was like, how can I enrich this experience even more? And so I was a manager at the auditorium, a student manager there, working events and seeing shows and being able to immerse myself in that world. And then I was also a Hudson and Holland scholar, and we would do a showcase every year. And once I learned that showcase existed, it was an art showcase.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, can I help organize it and be a part of the committee? And then as I was doing that work, I started bringing in some of my friends. And even when I first went to the showcase, it wasn't very diverse. And so I was like, well, there are so many Black and brown and queer students in the Hudson and Holland Scholars Program that should be represented at this showcase. And so I took it upon myself to reach out to them and recruit them and see if they would be interested and make sure that they were a part of that experience. And I think that kind of taught me about hustling a little bit.
Okay.
Like, it was like, yes, I was doing my degree program, going to class, getting the grades, showing up, did my internship requirement and all of those things. But it was like, how can I do even more to set myself apart and also just give myself experiences I need that I think will benefit me once I enter the workforce? And so I think that really helped to shape my experience on campus and my experience off campus as well.
Well, I think it's also great that you recognize that, or at least decided that maybe that actually being on the stage or being an artist wasn't for you, but there was a way to still be involved in this passion, even if it wasn't center stage. Just talk to me about how the lessons that you learned working at the auditorium and all of that just kind of reinforced how you were making the right decision for yourself.
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about service in those roles, and I think that naturally fits my temperament. As you mentioned, sort of being center stage, being the spotlight, that was a lot of what I did in high school. And while it was very fun, I just don't think that's where my personality naturally lends itself to. And so I learned very quickly that I was like, I really love being in this service role and being in service to others and helping them achieve what they want to achieve, and just being in the background and kind of learning how things work and then being able to translate that knowledge to the artist and create opportunities from that. And I think that's a lot of even what I do in my career now. When I joined the Arts Council of Indianapolis, that was one of my early jobs as the grants manager there. And there are so many artists, again, Black, brown, queer, female, on all of the various marginalized groups who literally just didn't understand how grants work and didn't know how to access that world and access that funding. And so I was like, well, I'm here and I'm learning about it. And
Right.
so it was like, how can I make sure that this knowledge doesn't stop with me and that they are brought in and that they understand how they can access these resources that are designed for them so that they can have thriving careers as well.
You're the grants and community manager for the Pop Culture Collaborative. Tell me about that effort.
Yeah, that's such a unique opportunity. It's funny how I found it. I was scrolling through LinkedIn one day, not even the job board, and I saw a posting for this organization called the Pop Culture Collaborative, and I'm seeing words like arts and entertainment and pop culture and philanthropy and all of these things and grants, and it's a $8-ish million grant program. And I was like, reading the job description, I'm like, this sounds so much like me and all of the experiences that I've had. And I got my master's in philanthropic studies as well. So like, it was just the perfect blend of all of my interests. And so the Pop Culture Collaborative, it's a philanthropic resource organization that operates at the intersection of social justice and pop culture. And so we're really focused on how you can leverage popular culture. So TV, film, music, fashion, sports, podcasting, audio storytelling, to transform the way that people think about the world and see themselves and also vision what's possible in the world. And we believe deeply that we can leverage popular culture to encourage people to pursue a just and pluralist future in which everyone belongs and they are treated as such. And so our grant-making programs, our convenings, our learnings are all focused on how you can use these various popular culture mediums to tell a different story that's more focused on abundance and joy and seeking truth and standing up for one another, as opposed to some of the other themes that have existed in the popular culture industries for many years that are around scarcity and bootstraps narratives and all of those things. And we just believe when you think about where people form identities, where they're educated about things, where they make sense of what's going on in the world, you know, it may happen in schools and it may happen online in certain ways and in books and such. But for the most part, people are watching TV, they're watching movies, they're listening to podcasts, they're listening to music. And so how can we leverage these mediums that people are already tapping into to tell a different story and for them to rethink and reframe the way that they see what's possible in the world? And that's what we're focused on doing. And it's really fun and rewarding and challenging and academic work. But it's been really fulfilling so far.
What is most rewarding about it, and what is kind of some of the biggest challenges that you face?
So I'll start with the challenges. I think the challenges are that there's just not a lot of resources for this work. Narrative change work is fairly nascent from a philanthropic perspective. People have certainly been doing it for decades. I mean, but for philanthropy to recognize narrative change as an avenue in which they should be putting their financial resources, that's pretty new. And to add another layer on that, usually philanthropy, when they focus on narrative change, it's from a journalism and a strategic communication standpoint. But when you throw pop culture in the mix, it's like, well, no, we have nothing to do with film and television and music and so on. And it's like, well, actually, there's so much rich opportunity to invest in those industries. And so that's one of the major challenges, is just making sure that there's enough resources. We're often considered the only player in town that's really devoted to what we consider the pop culture for social change field. So there's that element. And then the other thing that makes it even more challenging is there is a very well-resourced opposing side to the work that we're doing. And so, for instance, there's a lot of conservative media, for instance, that they've begun to leverage podcast and TV and film and music to tell their story, and they're resourced to a much greater extent than we are. And so we're trying to combat billions of dollars that are going into more hateful and divisive rhetoric with this more pluralist and just rhetoric, but with a much, much smaller budget to be able to do the work. So that's what's really challenging about it. But I think what's rewarding about it is that you see what's possible and how people's minds are changing when they engage with this different mediums. And I mean, you know, we're working in comedy as well, and we've, you know, helped with some films, and we've helped with some people's podcasts and helped to scale them so that they can reach more and more people. And they're so deeply appreciative of the fact that philanthropy is recognizing what they're doing as charitable work and as worthy of being invested in, so that they can continue to do that work and to do it at scale so that they can reach millions of people with their message. And so while we're still so early on in the work and there's so much to do, there's just so much potential and so much appetite, and there's so many players out there who are pushing out really, really great messaging in their work that are in need of resources, that each year we're able to just help many more people.
Is that what really drives you? Is just helping these folks push their message out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the work. And I think for me, it's like, as I think about the way that I've approached my career, it's never been about me. It's never been about the rooms that I can get in. It's really just about all of these extremely talented, brilliant, creative people in the world who have a meaningful message to share and just need a platform and just need to be resourced and just need someone to believe in them and say that what you have to say is valuable. And we think it's so valuable that we're going to devote 25, 50, 75, $100,000 to the work that you're doing so that you can continue to do it because we believe that it's important for you to be here and for your voice to be out in the ether. And so that's what motivates me, honestly, is that it's just this work is worth doing and these voices are worth being elevated. And so as much as I can do to support that, I'll do it.
What does it mean to you personally to receive this inaugural Early Impact Award?
I honestly, I think I'm still coming to terms with it. And I think it's for two reasons. The first is just that it's the first. Mm-hmm. And to the point that you made about the O'Neill School and the reputation it has and all of the thousands of O'Neill graduates that are out in the world doing truly impactful work. I mean, it's just so humbling, and I just feel so much gratitude that someone looked around at what all of the graduates were doing and looked at me and said, what you're doing is impactful and what you're doing is worth being honored, essentially. And there's so much weight to that. It is almost overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh, like, because to my point earlier, it's like, I don't do it for the recognition. I don't do it for the honor. So it's like for someone to see and recognize how much this means to me, I mean, that just means the world to me. And I think then the additional layer on top of that is, as an arts management student especially, the arts are not often considered a necessity. They're considered additive, supplementary, something, oh, that's a nice to have, but you don't really need that. And, no shade to the O'Neill School, but when I was here, the arts management program was not as resourced as it even is today. And a lot of the other degree programs had a lot more resources. And so we just kind of often felt like the ugly stepsister of the program, where it was kind of like, oh, like, you guys are important, but there's these people who are saving lives and, helping people get clean water and helping people with their reproductive health and so on. And so I think just the layer of it, like being the first and me being an arts management student and someone saying that you are valuable, the work that you're doing in the arts is valuable, I just think that means the world.
Well, and arts save lives. I mean, there are people that, whether they're creating or consuming or whatever it is, they're down, they could lift their spirits. It is a really important part of life. I'll put it this way. It isn't necessary for life, but it is necessary for living.
I agree.
And that
and
to
thriving.
me is exactly. And that to me is something that's really, really important.
100% agree. Yes. Couldn't have said it better.
So what is kind of, I'm going to ask you now a real impossible question. Tell me where you envision yourself being or the work that you're going to do, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Kind of what kind of path do you see forward of how you can continue to help others in the ways that you have?
I like that you prefaced it by saying it was an impossible question, especially since I am a person who will often respond to like 5, 10, 15-year questions with saying, I don't know.
Yeah. Because we don't know, but we could dream.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so I think the short answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
The long answer is, and I think this answer is really what's even gotten me to where I am today, is that I have my personal mission, which is to, again, protect, preserve, steward culture, especially culture that's at risk of erasure and censure and appropriation. And so for me, the way that I see my career is I want to take advantage of whatever opportunities allow me to do that and to continue doing that at scale. What that looks like exactly, I think there is a lot of expansiveness in how I think about my career. Right now I'm in philanthropy. I would love to stay in philanthropy, but I also do a lot of creative consulting and event curation and other things that are about gathering and convening people and doing some of that sense and meaning making that I mentioned earlier. And so it may be that my career pivots to that work. And I think for me, what's been most important for my career, and I think why I've been able to achieve the success I have so far, is that I'm just really open-minded, and my eyes are always open and my ears are always open. And I let the opportunities guide me as opposed to having a really narrow vision of what it is that I want to do with my career. Because I feel like when you have that really narrow vision, you don't see the other things that
Sure.
are going on that may actually be a really, really good fit for you. And so I'm honestly just excited to see where it goes. I honestly have no idea, but I know that this is the work that I want to do. I know that this is the work that I will be doing, and the exact avenue by which I will be doing it is to be determined.
Sure.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for O'Neill students that are just graduating, going out into the world, or those who are thinking about coming here to try to pursue their passion?
I think the short of it is just to speak up and to speak boldly, and to be courageous. I think often when we're young and young professionals, whether as students or being early on in the workforce, we kind of go in with this anxiety, this imposter syndrome that I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not supposed to be here. There's all of this history and legacy of how things have been done. And I think while history and legacy is important, and I'll be the first one to say, like, listen to and respect your elders and the work that has come before you, I also believe in the principle of Sankofa, which is you have to look back in order to look forward. And I think we're also like, you get into the workforce and you very, very quickly realize that, to put this very plainly, a lot of things are made up and a lot of the rules are made up and a lot of the policies and the best practices, I often would challenge and say, well, who are these best practices for? Right. And who determined that this was a best practice, and who determined that this is the way that things have to be? And I think what I would encourage people to do is to challenge norms and challenge the status quo and really go out into the workforce and say, I see this and I see the way that we've been doing this, and I have questions about this, and I want to challenge this, and I really want to unpack like why we have been behaving this way, performing this way, implementing our programs this way, whatever the appropriate verbiage is. And I think that's another reason why I've seen successes. I've been willing to push and to challenge and to say, this isn't right. We should do this differently. This doesn't have to be done this way. And I think overcoming that imposter syndrome, overcoming that anxiety will almost unlocks like this superpower energy in you where you're like, I can do this. I'm capable. I'm valid. And the grounding that this school in particular gives you, it gives you all that you need to go out in the workforce and make a difference. And so I would just say, trust your education, trust your gut. And again, just be willing to speak up and challenge the status quo.
There's nothing more damaging to a business or an industry than the phrase, well, that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
That you don't grow that way. You don't improve. You don't get better. So I applaud you for going ahead and doing that. Rishard, congratulations on your early success. Congratulations on the award. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, that's all the time we have today on O'Neill Speaks. O'Neill Speaks is the official podcast of the Paul H. O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs. All opinions and comments on O'Neill Speaks belong to the host and guest of the O'Neill School and don't necessarily reflect those of the school itself. Music for O'Neill Speaks is by Manos Mars. Be sure to subscribe to O'Neill Speaks on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcatcher app so you don't miss an episode. We're out of time, but for now, and for the O'Neill School, I'm Ken Bykoff saying thanks for listening, everybody.